bro. They're making violent threats against both the judge and the prosecutor handling his crazy murder for hire case.
Lil Durk's case isn't about to end anytime soon. Not only has he threatened the judge, he has been caught threatening witnesses and anyone who is close enough to the case, and it's not looking good. In this video, I'll be telling about Lil Durk's threats and what it means for his case. The feds playing dirty. We talking about Lil Durk, the voice of the streets himself, the man who put Chicago drill on the map and kept it there. But right now, my boy ain't charting. He's fighting for his life in a Fed case that's messier than a dice game in the parking lot. And get this, prosecutors just got caught hiding death threats against the judge and the prosecutor for 7 months while they was making decisions about whether Durk should walk or stay locked. Yeah, you heard that right. Let me run that back for the people in the back who might have missed it. For 7 whole months, the feds sat on information about somebody calling the judge's phone, talking that crazy talk, demanding they free Durk and his co-defendant. They ain't tell the defense lawyers nothing. They ain't mention it when they was arguing bail. They kept it tucked like a burner while Durk's legal dream team was out here fighting with one hand tied behind their back, not knowing that the judge deciding his fate had been personally threatened by somebody claiming to be riding for Smirk. The prosecutors they own selves said these threats came from Durk's supporters, or what they dramatically calling his vindictive gang, like this some episode of The Wire. So how we even end up here, what really went down, and why is this potentially the game changer that could flip one of the biggest federal cases in hip-hop history? Strap in, cause this story got more twists than a pack of backwoods, and every single one of them gonna have your jaw on the floor. Let's take it back to early 2025. On February 22nd, U.S. Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue, yeah, the judge presiding over Durk's case, checked her voicemail and found 4 messages that would make anybody's blood run cold. These wasn't no regular angry messages from some Karen upset about a speeding ticket. Nah, these was full-blown death threats against the judge, against courthouse workers, threats talking about mass destruction and burning everything to the ground. The caller, some dude whose voice the prosecutors later said belonged to someone from Durk's circle, left these messages with sounds of straight-up gunfire in the background. Imagine you at work, checking your messages, and you hear that. That's different, but yo, it gets crazier, way crazier. The caller wasn't just talking in circles being vague about it. He got specific, disturbingly specific, saying stuff like, if they get life, I'm gonna burn this expletive down. I'm talking about the world, and I'm gonna burn it to the ground, all while demanding that Judge Donahue free both Lil Durk and his mans DeAndre D.D. Wilson. These wasn't no heat of the moment type joints. These was calculated, repeated attempts to put pressure on a federal judge to let defendants walk in one of the most high-profile murder for hire cases the rap game ever witnessed. And if you thought that was the end of the drama, you dead wrong, my guy. Fast forward to April 28th, 2025, a little over 2 months later. Lead prosecutor Ian Ianniello, the man literally building the RICO-style case against Smirk, got his own set of death threats. Another caller, again screaming about freeing Durk, threatened to murk Ianniello, other prosecutors in the office, and courthouse staff. Let that marinate for a second. The person prosecuting the case is now catching threats himself, receiving the same type of violent energy that was directed at the judge. This wasn't random. This wasn't no coincidence. According to the feds, this was part of a deliberate pattern of intimidation designed to knock the whole judicial process off its axis. Now here's where things get really wild, and I mean legally fascinating in the worst way possible. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, yeah, that division, got involved. They investigated these threats. They took it so serious that they warned every single federal judge in the Central District of California. Every single one. The Bureau recognized that these threats represented a credible danger not just to Judge Donahue and Prosecutor Ianniello, but potentially to the entire federal judiciary in the region. This was major. This was serious. This was the kind of thing that gets federal law enforcement moving, like they responding to a national security threat. But, and this is the part that's got everybody's head spinning, the defense lawyers didn't find out about none of this until October 1st, 2025. Let that sink all the way in. February threats, April threats, FBI investigation, warnings to every federal judge in the district, and the lawyers representing Lil Durk and his co-defendants didn't hear a peep about it for 7 months. Not during bail hearings, not during pretrial motions, not during any of the critical legal proceedings where this information might have been, I don't know, extremely relevant to whether their client was getting a fair shake from the courts. You understand the magnitude of what that means in the streets of the legal system? On May 8th, 2025, Judge Patricia Donahue hit Durk with that bail denial. She ruled that homie was too dangerous to be let out, that he posed a flight risk and was a threat to the community.
He's accused of orchestrating a fucking assassination and flying the killers on private jets. That's some mobster shit right there. That's not bondable.
This was a critical L, one that meant Durk would stay locked down in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. Can't see his family, can't work on his music, can't live his life while he's fighting these charges. And at the time she made that ruling, Judge Donahue had been personally threatened by somebody demanding Durk's release, but she never disclosed that fact. She never told the defense, by the way, I've been receiving death threats in this case. She just ruled, and Durk stayed in the county. Durk's defense team, led by the legendary Drew Findling. We talking about the lawyer who got so many wins, he got a nickname, the $1 billion lawyer. They came out swinging like they ready for war. On November 13th, 2025, they filed what can only be described as a legal nuke, a motion to dismiss the whole entire indictment, or alternatively, to kick every single judge and prosecutor in the Central District of California off the case. That's right, they ain't just asking for a new judge. They ain't just requesting a different prosecutor. They saying the whole case been so fundamentally compromised, so tainted by this 7-month cover-up that it cannot proceed fairly under any circumstances whatsoever. In their filing, Durk's lawyers came with that smoke. They described the non-disclosure as an institutional cover-up, arguing that it created an irreconcilable conflict of interest that has fatally compromised the entire prosecution. And their reasoning is pretty damn compelling when you really sit with it. They arguing, and I'm pulling directly from their motion, to state the obvious, Judge Donahue was in no position to consider whether Mr. Banks was too dangerous to be released, while having been both personally threatened by someone purporting to act on Mr. Banks's behalf. Think about the logic there, gang. How can a judge fairly evaluate whether a defendant is dangerous when she actively being threatened by people claiming to be rocking with that defendant? How can she objectively weigh the evidence, assess the risk factors, and make an impartial decision when there's this massive undisclosed elephant sitting right there in the courtroom? It's like asking somebody to ref a pickup game while one team's homies is sliding through sending them threats, and then not telling the other team's coach that it's happening. The whole thing smell fishy, even if nobody did nothing technically illegal. But hold up, there's more. Because in the world of federal prosecution, nothing is ever simple or straightforward, and the government wasn't about to just roll over and play dead on this criticism. On November 10th, 2025, federal prosecutors filed their own motion, not to apologize for the non-disclosure. Oh no, they filed asking for an anonymous jury to be impaneled for Durk's trial. They reasoning? They claiming that Lil Durk and his OTF Only the Family collective demonstrate a contempt for the judicial process, and that protecting the identities of jurors is necessary to prevent interference, intimidation, or worse. In their 8-page filing, prosecutors painted a picture of an ongoing pattern of witness intimidation and straight-up obstruction. They ain't just point to the death threats against Judge Donahue and prosecutor Yaniello. They alleged that OTF members have been out here intimidating cooperating witnesses and they families, creating what they describe as a climate of fear, designed to knock the case off the rails. They even claimed that while Durk been locked up, he himself been engaged in obstructive conduct, including using contraband devices like an Apple Watch with cellular capabilities, and using other inmates' phone pins to make 3-way calls on the jack. The prosecutor's argument boils down to this. Durk and his crew showed repeatedly that they don't respect the rules, that they'll do whatever it takes to throw salt in the game, and that the only way to ensure a fair trial is to keep the jury's identities secret so they can't be pressured, threatened, or influenced. On the surface, it sounds reasonable. Protect the jury, protect the process, make sure justice can be served without nobody getting leaned on. But here's where the prosecution's argument starts to crumble like a stale cookie. On November 14th, 2025, the government filed their response to Durk's dismissal motion, and they called the defense's concerns frivolous. They basically saying, yeah, we kept the death threats on the low for 7 months, but that ain't no big deal. The judge can still be fair. The prosecutor can still be objective. Nothing to see here, folks. The sheer audacity of that response is wild. We talking about death threats against court officials in a case where the defendant facing life in the feds. We talking about 7 months of silence on information that directly impacts the fairness of bail hearings and pretrial proceedings. And the prosecution's response is essentially, stop crying, this don't change nothing. The legal war zone. Now let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, because this ain't happening in a vacuum. This is all playing out against the backdrop of one of the most serious federal cases in hip-hop history, a murder-for-hire conspiracy charge that could send Lil Durk to the pen for the rest of his natural-born life. The case itself stems from a tragic incident on August 19th, 2022, at a gas station in West Hollywood. According to federal prosecutors, Lil Durk, motivated by get back for the November 2020 killing of his Day One and OTF artist King Von, allegedly allegedly orchestrated a hit on rival rapper Quando Rondo. 5 shooters, all allegedly affiliated with OTF, flew from Chicago to Los Angeles, tracked Rondo for hours like they was on a mission, and let them things go at a gas station near the Beverly Center Mall. They let off at least 18 rounds, including shots from a fully automatic switch. Quando Rondo walked away without a scratch, but his 24-year-old cousin, Saviaya Robinson, caught a hot one and died in the crossfire. The prosecution alleging that Durk bankrolled the entire operation, flights, hotels, rental whips, ski masks, the blicks, all paid for with OTF resources. They claiming he coordinated the logistics, telling his peoples things like, don't book no flights under no names involved with SICME to avoid leaving a paper trail. Bank records allegedly showing payments made via a credit card in Durk's government name. Text messages allegedly showing him directing the operation from a distance. It's a circumstantial case, built on financial records, communications, and snitch testimony, but it's a serious one that got everybody in the industry nervous. Lil Durk was booked on October 24th, 2024, near Miami International Airport. Prosecutors claiming he was trying to flee the country, having booked international flights to Dubai, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. The defense disputing this characterization, arguing that Durk is an internationally famous artist with legitimate business reasons to travel overseas, and that the trip was planned way before any arrests went down. But the optics was terrible, real terrible, and combined with how serious the charges was, bail got denied. Since his arrest, Durk been held without bond at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. A superseding indictment in April 2025 added a stalking charge to the conspiracy and firearms counts, though references to Durk's lyrics that was initially included as evidence got struck down by a judge who recognized the First Amendment issues at play. The prosecution announced in June 2025 that they would not seek the death penalty, but make no mistake, Durk is looking at life in the feds if he get found guilty. His 5 co-defendants, Kayvon London Grant, DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, Keith Jones, David Bryan Lindsay, and Asa Houston, all facing similar charges and similar stakes. This ain't no state case where you can plea down to manslaughter and do a quick bid. This is the federal system, where the conviction rate be hovering around 90%, where sentences is harsh and mandatory minimums leave little room for negotiation or leniency. So now we find ourselves at this absolutely critical crossroads where the death threats and the cover-up done threw a massive wrench into an already complex legal machinery. The question becomes, what happens next? Can Durk actually get this case thrown out, or is this just legal chess designed to create grounds for appeal if he catch a guilty verdict? Let's start with the legal mechanics of what Durk's team trying to accomplish, because understanding the strategy is crucial to appreciating just how unprecedented this whole situation really is. When defense attorneys file a motion to dismiss based on prosecutorial misconduct or judicial bias, they essentially arguing that the defendant's constitutional right to due process been so thoroughly violated that the case cannot proceed fairly. This ain't just about getting a do-over with a different judge. It's about saying that the entire foundation of the prosecution is rotten to the core, that the scales of justice been so fundamentally tipped that there ain't no way to level them again. Now, let's talk about Drew Findling, because if you're gonna challenge the entire federal prosecution apparatus, you better bring somebody who know how to scrap in these legal streets. Findling ain't just any lawyer. He earned that billion-dollar lawyer nickname for a reason, having represented everybody from Gucci Mane to Cardi B, from YFN Lucci to NBA Youngboy. His track record includes victories in cases that seemed unwinnable, including a woman who set her husband on fire and was found not guilty on battered spouse syndrome defense. That's levels. In interviews about the case, Findling been methodical in breaking down the government's fumbles. He pointed out that the 7-month delay in disclosure wasn't just a minor oversight, it was a systematic failure that affected multiple critical stages of the case.
We filed a motion to dismiss because we said somebody said something either purposely or most likely negligently to a grand jury, which undermines the indictment itself, so we moved to dismiss the case.
Every bail hearing, every pretrial motion, every strategic decision made by the defense was made without crucial information about threats targeting court officials. That ain't just unfair. According to Findling, it's unconstitutional and a violation of Durk's rights. But Findling ain't just focused on the non-disclosure. He also been systematically dismantling other aspects of the prosecution's case piece by piece. Remember how I mentioned that the superseding indictment initially included references to Lil Durk's lyrics as evidence? Yeah, about that whole situation. The prosecution claimed that Durk released a song called Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy featuring Babyface Ray, and that this song was created to celebrate and monetize the death of Saviaya Robinson.
There's the song in which Durk was just doing a feature. And in that song, there's no screams. at all, okay? And so that is in the indictment.
Findling and his team immediately started doing their homework, interviewing producers and executives in the music industry. What they discovered was shocking. The song, specifically Durk's verse, had been recorded 7 months before the shooting even happened. Unless Durk had a crystal ball and could see into the future like some rap Nostradamus, there was absolutely no way his lyrics was celebrating an event that ain't even occurred yet. The judge eventually struck the lyric references from the indictment, but the damage to Durk's public image had already been done. This raises a bigger question that goes way beyond just Lil Durk's case and touches the whole culture.
They sit and look through not hundreds, not thousands, but probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of verses, and tries to find something that they think is somehow connected, possibly, to a crime.
The use of rap lyrics as evidence in criminal prosecutions done became increasingly controversial, with civil rights advocates arguing that it unfairly criminalizes artistic expression and disproportionately targets black artists. California passed the Decriminalizing Artistic Expression Act in 2022, which limits the use of rap lyrics in state criminal cases. But this is a federal prosecution, so that protection don't apply here.
I know there was an attempt by some congressmen to do the same thing in federal cases. I don't think it's got the steam that it needs to, but it feels good to know there's some people in DC that are saying, you know what? Do we really need to do this?
Findling been vocal about this issue, pointing out that prosecutors don't subject other art forms to the same level of scrutiny. Nobody parsing through country songs about drinking and driving to prosecute DUI cases. Nobody using heavy metal lyrics about violence to build murder cases. But with rap, particularly drill rap from Chicago artists like Lil Durk, prosecutors routinely sift through thousands upon thousands of bars looking for anything that might connect to criminal activity.
We need to distinguish between some organization of 6 people doing home invasions and create a faux label and have one guy that goes to the studio 2 times a year. That's totally different than people going in the studio that are professionals, that are in there sometimes 20-hour days.
The broader context matters here, because Durk's case is part of a disturbing trend of federal prosecutors treating hip-hop collectives like they criminal enterprises straight out of The Godfather. We've seen it with Young Thug's YSL Rico case in Atlanta, where prosecutors tried to argue that a record label was actually a street gang operating under corporate cover. We're seeing it now with claims that OTF ain't just a music collective, but an association in fact entity engaged in murder and violence. What's really at stake? Back to the immediate legal battle at hand. The prosecution's push for an anonymous jury adds another layer of complexity to this already Byzantine situation. Anonymous juries is relatively rare in the legal game, typically reserved for cases involving organized crime, terrorism, or situations where there's a demonstrated history of jury tampering. By requesting one, prosecutors essentially saying that Lil Durk and his peoples pose such a threat to the judicial process that potential jurors need to be protected from their identities being leaked. Durk's defense strongly opposing this request, arguing that it further prejudices their client by making him seem more dangerous than the evidence actually supports. They contending that there's no direct evidence linking Durk to any witness intimidation or threats, and that using an anonymous jury creates an atmosphere of fear that could influence jurors to convict simply because they've been led to believe the defendant is so dangerous that their identities must be concealed for their own safety. The irony here is almost too much to bear. The prosecution arguing that they need an anonymous jury because of threats and intimidation in the case, but they kept the most serious threats, those against the judge and prosecutor themselves, hidden from the defense for 7 whole months. They want to protect hypothetical future jurors while having failed to properly address threats that actually occurred against actual court officials. The contradictions is glaring and got everybody scratching their heads. Now let's talk about what the prosecution claiming Durk did while he'd been locked down, because these allegations factor heavily into their argument for why he should remain detained and why an anonymous jury is necessary. According to court filings, Durk allegedly violated numerous jail rules at the Metropolitan Detention Center, prosecutors claiming he used the phone accounts of 13 other inmates to make 3-way calls, circumventing the facility's monitoring systems. They also alleging he possessed and attempted to destroy a contraband Apple Watch with cellular capabilities. These violations was cited as evidence of Durk's disrespect for the rules and factored into Judge Donahue's decision to deny him bail in May 2020. 2025. But again, we circle back to the central problem. How do we know that decision was made fairly when the judge was operating under the shadow of undisclosed death threats? The defense arguing we can't know, and that uncertainty alone is enough to taint the entire proceeding. Beyond the immediate case against Durk, prosecutors also linked him to additional violent incidents, though he ain't been charged in these matters yet. In December 2024, unsealed documents revealed FBI allegations connecting Durk to funding a separate murder for hire in Chicago, the January 7, 2022 killing of Stefan Mack outside a youth center, prosecutors claiming this was get back for Durk's brother D-Thang's murder. And they used this information during bail arguments to paint Durk as somebody with a pattern of funding violent retaliation. There's also been reporting about a confidential witness, a rat, claiming Durk placed bounties on 6 additional people, though the specifics remain largely redacted in court documents. These claims ain't resulted in additional charges, but they've been introduced to create a narrative of Durk as somebody who routinely uses violence to settle disputes and maintain street credibility.
See, for me, because I'm such a Durkologist and I've been following this stuff for so long, I've been thinking that there's 6 murders that Durk might have something to do with.
The trial is currently scheduled for January 20th, 2026, before U.S. District Judge Michael Fitzgerald. A hearing on the defense's dismissal motion and the government's anonymous jury request is expected to go down soon, potentially reshaping the entire trajectory of the case. If the dismissal motion get granted, which would be an extremely rare outcome in federal court, the charges against Durk could be thrown out entirely. More likely, the court might order a new judge and prosecutor to handle the case, essentially hitting the reset button on the entire prosecution. But even if the dismissal motion fail, Durk's team got other avenues to pursue. They could argue that any conviction should be overturned on appeal based on the non-disclosure issue. They could seek to have Judge Donahue's bail decision revisited by a different judge who wasn't threatened. They could challenge the anonymous jury request as creating undue prejudice. In short, they got multiple strategic options. And with somebody like Drew Findling leading the charge, you can bet they'll pursue every single avenue available. Now let's pull back and look at the bigger picture here, because this case ain't just about Lil Durk and whether he orchestrated a murder for hire. It done became a referendum on how the criminal justice system handles high-profile defendants, particularly black artists in the hip-hop community. It's about whether prosecutors can keep crucial information on the hush-hush while claiming to seek justice. Let's start with the human element of this story, because it's easy to get lost in legal minutia and forget that there's real people affected by all of this street meets courtroom drama. Saviaya Robinson, the 24-year-old cousin of Quando Rondo who got killed in the West Hollywood shooting, was by all accounts an innocent victim caught in the crossfire of a beef he had nothing to do with. He was just pumping gas, just living his life, when the gunfire erupted. His mother filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Lil Durk in February 2025, seeking accountability for her son's death. That's real grief, real loss, real pain that no legal maneuvering can undo or bring back. At the same time, Lil Durk got 6 kids who ain't seen their father except through prison glass since October 2024. He got a mother, a father he reconnected with after 26 years being estranged, siblings, homies, a whole community in Chicago that look up to him not just as an artist, but as somebody who made it out the trenches, who achieved success against incredible odds. He founded the Neighborhood Heroes Foundation, working on anti-violence initiatives in the very neighborhoods that the prosecution claiming he was organizing hits from. The contradictions is stark, and they real. And then there's King Von, whose death in November 2020 allegedly set all of this in motion, like dominoes falling. Von and Durk was more than just label mates or business associates. They was brothers in every sense except biological. They came up together in O Block on Chicago's South Side. They navigated the treacherous waters of drill rap together, where authenticity often means recounting real violence and real loss. When Von got killed outside an Atlanta hookah lounge during a confrontation with Quando Rondo's crew, it devastated Durk. Timothy Lul Tim Leaks, who was rolling with Quando Rondo that night, shot and killed King Von in what was later ruled self-defense. Murder charges against Leaks was dismissed in August 2023 under Georgia's Stand Your Ground law. He a free man walking the streets. Von is dead and buried, and according to prosecutors, that death triggered a cycle of retaliation that led to Saviaya Robinson's death nearly 2 years later. This brings us to one of the most crucial aspects of Durk's case, the potential for co-defendant cooperation. Snitching, in street terms. Federal cases live and die on cooperation. The conviction rate is so high try precisely because prosecutors is masters at flipping defendants, getting them to testify against each other in exchange for reduced sentences. There have been persistent rumors that one of Durk's co-defendants, possibly Kayvon Vonnie Grant, might be cooperating with authorities, though nothing been officially confirmed yet. If somebody at the top of the OTF hierarchy, somebody who was there for the planning and execution of the alleged hit, decides to cooperate and flip on Durk, his chances of beating the case drop dramatically. Federal prosecutors don't have to prove their case beyond all doubt. They just need to convince 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you got somebody on the stand saying, yes, I was there, yes, Durk paid for it, yes, he gave the green light, that's devastatingly powerful testimony, even if it's coming from somebody who testifying to save their own skin from life in the feds. On the other hand, if all of Durk's co-defendants stay solid and refuse to cooperate, his chances improve significantly.
Yeah, I think he has a chance of beating it, and not only that, I think the feds are on a fucking losing streak lately. Cause there's a lot of people beating fucking cases, and not for nothing.
The prosecution's case appeared to rely heavily on circumstantial evidence, financial records, text messages, travel documents. That's good evidence, don't get it twisted. But it ain't the same as having somebody who was actually there saying, here's exactly what went down, and here's Durk's role in it. Without that insider testimony, reasonable doubt becomes a lot easier to establish for the defense. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.